All right, y'all. So like I said, we're going to knock out 3.7. And this is systems of linear inequalities. So remember, inequalities are your less than, greater than, and all that fun stuff. So the first thing we got to know is how to graph these type of equations, okay? So we're going to be graphing inequalities. All right, so remember, inequalities we're looking at are going to be greater than, less than, greater than or equals, or less than and equals. So depending on which one of these you got determines what kind of line you draw on the graph and where do you shade it. Because your inequality can have more than one answer when you're looking at stuff like greater than or less than, okay? So when you're graphing, if it's greater than, then you'll use a dashed line. So you use a dashed line, and greater than, we're going to shade above. If it's less than, we'll use a dashed line. And we're going to shade below. Now, MATLAB, you actually got to tell it. MATLAB will have a little, it'll have a dashed line and a solid line. You got to choose the type of line you're going to use when you graph these, okay? So these two, you would use the dashed line. So greater than, though, you're shading above. Less than will shade below. Now, when we shade, I'll show you in MATLAB, you got to grab the little paint can and drag it onto the graph. So I'm going to definitely show y'all how to do that in MATLAB in a second. So greater than, dash line, shade above. Less than, dash line, shade below. If it's greater than or equals, so since it's got equals in it, any of the solutions on the line will be true. So then we use a solid line. Or we're going to use a solid line. And we're still going to shade above. So anything greater than is going to shade above. And then finally, we got what? Less than or equal. If it's less than or equal, then we're still going to use a solid line. So anything that has equals in it is going to use a solid line. And it's going to shade below. So notice both of these that were less than are going to shade below, okay? The only difference on them is, like I said, if it had equals on it like these two, you're using a solid line. If it doesn't have the equals, you're using dash lines. Okay? So before we do the MATLAB stuff, let me play with a graph here with you. So let's just graph. Oh, let's do something like this. X is less than 2x plus 3. And then I'll graph this right here for us, okay? So the first thing you got to do, since these are linear, these will all be straight lines. So just remember, When we're graphing straight lines, we're going to use the 2-point line tool for these, okay? So y'all, I'm just going to pick me a couple x values that I think will be easy. So I'm going to do 0 for x and 1 for x. So first I need to get 2 points to graph, and then I'll show you everything on this, okay? So first of all, let's put a 0 in for x. So if I put a 0 in for x, 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 3 would give me a 3 for that y value. And then if I put a 1 in for the x, 2 times 1 is 2. And then 2 plus 3 gives me 5. So I've got 2 points now that I can graph. All right, so I'm just going to make it sort of small here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'd be -5 and then -5 to the left. All right, this is less than. It tells me right here if it's less than, I'm going to use a dashed line and I'm going to shade below the line. So there's my first point at 0, 3. So 0 on the x's and up 3 on the y value. Puts my first point right here. My second point is 1, 5. So y'all would go right 1 and up 5. All right, so I got my 2 points for my line. So now I'm going to draw a dashed line. So my dashed line going down through there. Now, less than, it said shade below. So I'm going to shade below this line. So what this means, this shaded area, any point in this shaded area will make that true when you plug them in. Any point that's not shaded will make that false. So anything that we shaded here makes that true if you plug these points in. And y'all can test that. This is the center of the graph, 0, 0. If you plug zeros in for this, well, this side is 0. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. So 0 less than 3, that is true. So that shows you that you shaded the right side of this, okay? So this is just to check it if you wanted to, okay? You can plug any point in that you shaded, and it makes that thing true, okay? Alrighty. So let's go play with MathLab and actually graph some of these, okay? So I'm going to share the MathLab. Hey, also, let me write this one down and we'll work it. And I'll actually show you how to do this on that calculator. So number 1 is y greater than x minus 4. All right, so let's go work it out. Get 2 points, and then when we get our 2 points, we will come back and actually graph this, okay? All right, y'all, so I'm going to pull up my chat. So y'all, give me 2 x values that I can use for these x's. I'm just sort of wanting to see what kind of x values y'all would pick. So y'all just chat me 2 x values y'all want to use. All right, so I'm going to use 0 for one of them, and then 1. All right, y'all. And any of them are good. 0 and 1 works perfect. 2 would work. Any of those work, okay? So let's plug in our x's and get the y values. So if we put a 0 in there, we get 0 minus 4. And 0 minus 4 would give us a negative 4. If we put a 1 in there, 1 minus 4 would give me a negative 3. All right, so we got 2 points we're going to graph. Now, this is greater than. So when we graph it, it's going to be a dashed line, and it's going to shade above. Now, before I do this in MathLab, let me show y'all how to do this on these calculators, because this is pretty neat. So I'm going to share the calculator. All right, also I'm going to go to y equals. Now, when you first start, all you're doing is putting in the x minus 4. So the x minus 4. Now, since I got greater than, I'm going to arrow all the way left on the left side of the y1. So watch my cursor, I'm going left. I'm over here on mine where the little blue box is. When it's flashing there, if you'll hit enter, it'll bring up another box that says, okay, what color do you want to shade it? Now, what I'm worried about is I'm going to arrow down to where it says line. Now, since we're greater than, we want to click this until you get this triangle right here. See how this triangle is bigger on top? This one would shade above. Now, watch this. If I click it again, this triangle is bigger on the bottom. So that would be what I would use for less than, okay? So let me go back. And since this triangle is bigger on top, it's for greater than. And then I'm going to go down and hit OK. So now that I've got it shading greater than, watch what happens when I hit graph. It's showing me what my graph is going to look like when I'm done, okay? Now, if that would have been less than, it would have shaded below the line, okay? So these can be done on the calculator also. So now we know what our line is going to look like when we're done. So let's go to MathLab. I'm going to click to enlarge my graph. I'm going to grab the line tool. Now remember, I have a dashed line, so you see this paint can. On the right side, it's got the solid line by default. I need to go down and click the dash line. So now I got the dash line picked, the line tool picked. I'm going to go plot 0, -4. And then I'm going to come over here and plot 1, -3. I got my 2 points. Now look on MathLab, you can actually see the dash line. The only thing the calculator don't do for us is show us the dash line and the solid line, but it does show us where we got to shade everything, okay? So now you see this paint can, that's how we're going to shade it. We're going to grab the paint can and drag it over here to the top of that line and enter. Once you've done that, it's shaded the top of this graph for us. So we would save that and then check your answer. All right, y'all, let's see this one. This one, you actually got to solve this one, okay? So I got 2x minus 5y less than or equal to a -15. All right, also, let's go work this one and then we'll come back and graph it, okay? All right, so I want this to look like this one. I want this y solved for on this one, okay? So if we're going to solve for the y here, our first move is to move that 2x to the other side. So we're going to move the 2x to the other side by subtracting 2x from each side. All right, y'all, so those two x's cancel on this side. I'm left with a negative 5y less than or equal. All right, so these are not like terms. So usually I put my x's before my numbers. So I'm going to put my negative 2x and then my minus 15. Okay? All righty. So here's the thing on this one. When you're solving for an inequality like this, and if I'm trying to make this y positive by dividing by negative 5, anytime we divide an inequality by a negative number, we got to reverse the inequality. So we're going to come in and divide everybody by negative 5. Since I'm dividing by negative, I need to reverse the inequality. So since dividing by a negative number, we must reverse the inequality. Now, we do not do that if I'm dividing by positive 5. If I divided here by positive 5, it would stay the same. We're only reversing them when we divide by negatives, okay? So that negative 5 divided by negative 5 makes that a positive y. Instead of less than or equal, we're now greater than and equal. All right, so let's see one here. A negative 2 over negative 5. Well, a negative divided by negative makes that a positive. And y'all, I can't do nothing with that 2/5. So that's going to stay a 2 over 5x. But right here, you got this negative 15 divided by negative 5. So negative divided by negative will make that a positive. And then 15 divided by 5 gives me a 3. All righty, so for this one, my two x's, I would use a 0 for this one. Because 0 times anything is 0. And then 0 plus 3 gives me 3. So 0 is a good number to pick most of the time, okay? Because 0 times the fraction, like I said, was a big 0. And then all you're doing is adding your 3. Now, my second number, what I'm going to do is pick a 5. Because y'all, if I put a 5 in for those x's, that 5 and that 5 would cancel. So y'all, it would look like this. When you put the 5 in for the x, they're going to cancel. So all that's left is 2 plus 3, which would give me a 5. So when x is 5, y is 5, okay? Alrighty. So I've got two numbers. Now also you could remember, you could have put this part right here into your y equals on your calculator, and it would have gave you a table with all these numbers on it, okay? So let me go to that real quick. So y'all, I'm going to clear everything off. So y equals, so let me clear it again and it'll get rid of that triangle. All right, so I had a fraction, so I'm going to hit alpha y equals and enter to do my fraction notation. That was a 2 on top, 5 on the bottom, arrow right, then hit your x, and then it was plus 3. So since it's greater than, remember, I can't do the lines on the calculator, but I can do the greater than or less than. So since this is greater than or equals, I'm going to arrow all the way left where I'm blinking on my box and hit enter. So I'm going to do blue again. I'm going to come down to the line and hit arrow right until I get the triangle bigger on top for greater than. And then I'm going to go down here and hit OK. Hey, also on that one, I would graph and be like that. Okay. So I know what it's sort of going to look like when we're done. I also on MATLAB, I'm going to click to enlarge my graph. I'm going to grab my line tool. This time it was greater than or equals. So I'm going to keep it on the solid line here, okay? So by default, it's on that solid line, so we're good. So let's go plot our 2 points. We had 0, 3, and then we had right 5 and up 5. All right, so there's my solid line. I'm greater than, so let me grab my paint can and drag it above the line and click. All right, y'all, so at that point, you're going to save it and check your answer. All right, y'all, so this one is x less than 5. Okay, so we got two special lines. So 3 is going to be x's, and when we get on number 4, it'll be y values, okay? But when you got just one variable, x less than 5, when it's an x, this is a vertical line. So the x's make vertical lines, and this is a vertical line that crosses the x-axis at 5. So if you was going to make a table on this, since this is x less than 5, it's like x equals 5 if you were graphing a line. But what it means is if you got a single variable and a single number here like that, that means every one of these x values has to be 5, no matter what. No matter how many points I want, every x value has to be 5, okay? Now, the y values can be anything if you're graphing them. You can make that a 0, 1, 1, 2, -5, 5. It does not matter what the y values are. So it does not matter what the y values are because every x value must be 5. Okay? Now, it's a dashed line because there's no equals under it. Now, when you're dealing with x's, they sort of shade different because you don't have a up above and a below on an X line like this when it's vertical. Whoops. So these vertical lines with X's less than shades left, greater than shades right. I'll tell you a trick. When you're dealing with X's, it points the way you got to shade. If it's pointing left, I'm going to shade left. If it's pointing right, I'm going to shade right, okay? So y'all, let's go back on this math lab. I'm going to click the enlarge graph. So since mine was x is less than 5, I'm going to grab the line tool. There's no equals, so it's going to be a dashed line like we said. Now it's a vertical line at 5, so if you come to the x-axis at 5, put 1 point, and then you can go up or down, no matter where you go, as long as you got a vertical line there, okay? So I could do 5, 0 and 5, 1 if I want to. I could have did 5, 0 and 5, 5. It does not matter what 2 points you pick as long as your x value is 5 on that one, okay? Alrighty, so it was pointing left, it's less than, and we said less than shades left. So you would grab that paint can, come over to the left side of that dashed line and click enter. So what this means is any of these x values that are shaded are going to be less than the x value of a 5. Okay? So then you would shave that and check your answer. All right, so here's the other one I was talking about, y'all. Y is greater than or equal to a 3. So since this is the y variable, this is a horizontal line that crosses the y-axis at 3. Okay, and it's a horizontal line. So if you were looking at a table for the y variables like this, it don't matter what these x's are, but guess what? Every one of these y values has to be 3, okay? So it does not matter what the x values are because every y value must be 3. Okay, so that's the things about these. If it's x's less than or greater than or equal, all the x's are that number. If it's y greater than, less than, equal, then all the y's are that number, okay? And I can graph it the same way I did the x's, although this time I'm making the line horizontal, okay? Remember, horizontal is sort of straight across. All right, y'all, so I'm going to click the enlarge graph, use my line tool. This one has an equals on it, so I'm using the solid line. And I'm going to plot my 2 points. So the y-axis is this vertical y-axis. I'm going to go up to 3, because remember it said it crosses the y-axis at 3 here. So there's 1 point. And then you would go either left or right and click another point. All right, now this one was greater than, so I grab my paint can and shade above. So at that point, y'all, you would save that and be done. All right, so let me see. Okay, so let me go back. Someone was asking about the less than greater than. All right, y'all. So when I was doing the less than greater than, I think this is what you're talking about, right? This was greater than. So since it's greater than, you use a dash line and shade above. This one was less than, so you use a dash line and shade below. Greater than or equal, you use a solid line and shade above. And then this was less than or equal, use a solid line, shade below. So if these are the 4 symbols you got, so it's got to be like one of those when you're actually graphing them, okay? Just remember to use this tool here to pick between the dashed lines and the solid lines before you actually start plotting them points. And y'all, what's coming up next? So yeah. If it opens to the left, you always read these left to right. So since the opening's to the left, we call that greater than. And if it's pointing left and it's bigger to the right, we say that is less than. So y'all, if y'all want the actual names of these, this one is greater than, like you said. This one pointing left would be less than. This one would be greater than or equal. And then this one would be less than or equal. Yeah. And it's the thing about math, you sort of always reading stuff left to right. So anytime it's opening to the left, you got greater thans. And if it's, like I said, pointing left but opening to the right, then that means whatever's on the right side would be greater, so that we would read it, the left side is less than that right side, okay? All right, y'all. So like I said, we was learning all of this stuff right here so that we could do one problem dealing with a system of inequalities. So here's the thing about a system of inequalities. The solution to a system of inequalities is the double shaded region. So what would happen? You're going to graph one equation and shade it. Then you'll come in and graph another equation and shade it. And where those two shaded regions intersect is going to be the solution to the inequality, okay? Alrighty, so let me show you an example of this and then we'll do it in MathLab, okay? So we're going to graph the system. So y'all, I'm going to do y is less than x minus 2. And then this one will be y is greater than, oh, how about x plus 2? Yeah, just for an example here, let me just do these two, okay? Now on this one, the way MATLAB is on this one is you're not going to actually graph the two solutions. You're just going to pick the picture that has your solutions to it, okay? So we don't have to physically graph these in here um, in MATLAB. So you have to graph them either by hand or calculator to get the answer, okay? So first I want to graph this one and do me an X and a Y table. And then I'll do the other one and do an X and a Y table. And y'all, I think for both of these, I'll do the zeros and one like y'all did for both of these. Zeros and ones are easy numbers. So if I put a zero here, 0 minus 2 gives us a negative 2. If I put a 1 here, 1 minus 2 gives us a negative 1. So I'm going to graph that first one real quick. So let me go out about 5 on my graph. That's why I use zeros and ones a lot too. Keeps these graphs nice and small for us, okay? So my first line was 0, -2. So here's 0, -2. Then I had 1, -1. So that'd be right 1, down 1. So notice this one was less than, so it's going to be a dashed line. So y'all, the question is, would I shade that line above or below? So y'all want to shade it below. So you would just sort of come in and shade that line below, okay? So let's do this one now. So let's see if I put a 0 in for the x, 0 plus 2 is 2. If I put a 1 in for x, 1 plus 2 is 3. All right, y'all, so let's see what I got. I got 0, 2, and then I got 1, 3. All right, that'd be a dashed line also. Well, I didn't do a very good example because I'm not going to have a very big part where they're intersecting, am I? Because that was greater than, so that's going to shade above the line again. So I didn't do real good on picking my numbers out, but this little section down here, the solution to one I did would actually be this little section down here where it's orange and blue, okay? Now, y'all, math labs are a lot nicer than mine. Um, and you'll be able to see big sections where they're intersecting. So my numbers just got me a little bit on this one. But the double shaded region is the only region that would be the solution to this problem, okay? So y'all, let's look at math labs because you'll see better shading on theirs, okay? Well, actually, let me do this on a calculator real quick to show you how you would do it on there. So I'm going to go to y equals, I'm going to clear this off. So for mine, I had x minus 2. So x minus 2. And that was less than, so I'm going to shade all the way left and hit enter until I get down here on my line. And I wanted less than, so there's greater than, there's less than. Come down and hit OK. Now I'm going to arrow down to y2 and put in my next equation, which was x plus 2. I'm going to arrow all the way left on that one and hit enter. It's going to shade this one red. And then it was greater than, so let me click it to the triangle bigger on top and then come down and hit OK. So let's see what the graph looks like on the calculator doing that. Well, and y'all see it, they ain't even shading that thing really. It's way down there if it's going to shade it. So I guess the one I drew would have had no solution, okay, technically. So I didn't pick very good numbers for mine, okay? But let's do one of these with MathLab. Oh, we never did check that, did we? All righty. All righty, so let's use their numbers, y'all. So we got y is greater than or equal to x plus 3, and y is less than or equal to 3 minus x. So look at these four pictures. So it's definitely going to be easy to tell on their problem, okay? So y'all, let's go here, and we're about to graph this thing real quick. So let's start with the y greater than or equal to x plus 3. All right, y'all, we need two x values for that. So y'all give me two x values for that one. All right, so y'all are staying with zeros and ones. All right, y'all, so let's put a zero in. 0 plus 3 is 3. And then 1 plus 3 is 4. So I know what my first line is going to look like. All right, y'all, let me just mark some points on here real quick. So the points are 0, 3. So here is 0, 3. And then 1, 4. So right 1, up 4. So y'all, would y'all use a dashed line or a solid line on that? All right, so you're going to use a solid line. Are you going to shade that one above or below? So you're shading that one above. So greater than, shading above. All right, so let me do this one here. That one was what? 3 minus x. And y'all are probably using the same x's. All right, y'all, so let's see what we get. 3 minus 0 is 3. And then 3 minus 1 is 2. So I'm at 0, 3. That point's the same. And then 1, 2. All right, I guess that's what, a solid line again. So this one's going to come down like this. The second graph, are you shading it above or below? So we're shading that in below. So that would be below this line. All righty, y'all. So I am double shaded on this left side here. Okay. So let's go to Math Lab. So A, B, C, or D? So definitely C here, y'all. There you go. Okay, so then you would check that answer and be done with that, okay? So y'all, that's the 3.7 part. Um, so let's look at the support for this. So let's see. Y'all, support only has two questions in it, okay? All right, so let me click on this first one. And the support is only doing lines, so you don't have to do no shading or anything on that. It was just getting you used to those vertical and horizontal lines. So for this one, for number one, remember this is y equals 1. So remember this would be the horizontal line crossing the y-axis at 1. So you grab the line tool. Now remember, when it's equals, equals is always a solid line, okay? So remember, since y equals 1, it's going to cross the y-axis at 1 here, and then it's going to be a horizontal line. No matter what point you pick, the y value has to be 1 on that, okay? So let me clear that and show y'all again. So line tool, cross at 1. And y'all watch that yellow banner up there. As I move right, it's going from 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. Left side, negative 2, 1, negative 3, 1. Like I said, it don't matter what point you pick as long as that y value was a 1, okay? And then you'll save that, check your answer. So the support was just doing those two. Now, they want to know, well, what's the slope of a horizontal line? Well, y'all, if the line is going straight across, it'll have a zero slope. If they go uphill, they got positive slopes. If they go downhill, they got negative slopes. But y'all, if this line goes straight across and horizontal, it automatically has a zero slope. All right, so let's watch this one. X equals 3. Y'all, let me make these graphs bigger for you. See which one y'all want to pick. Now remember, this is X's now. So X equals 3, would y'all pick A, B, C, or D? What are y'all saying? A? Let's see. Let me pull A up. Yeah, right. Because remember, X equals a number is a vertical line. So you would go to 3 on the X-axis and then go up or down and pick your second point. Oh yeah, that's perfect, y'all. Good job. I was clicking around a second. All right, y'all. One more and I'll be done with you. Let me make all these bigger. A, B, C, or D. X equals negative 2. Y'all, looks like the is it always going to be A for me, right? Yeah, that's negative 2 up and down. So good job, Jesselyn. That is definitely A on that one. All right, so let's go back to number 1 then. Y equals negative 1. Pick your line tool. Go to negative 1 on the y-axis. And then, like I said, left or right, y'all. All right, let's see what y'all got. What's the slope of that line? All right, good job, y'all. It's still going to be 0. Good job. All righty, y'all. So, any questions on this stuff today? Okay, so I wanted to make Friday a sort of mellow day for us. Okay, so remember,